You've been told you need 25 grams of fiber a day. But what if I told you your body's actual requirement is zero? Let's bust the fiber myth, especially if you're keto or carnivore. Hey everyone, I'm Marc Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach. This is part of my question and answer series, The Fiber Myth, why keto bodies don't need the minimum. Okay, let's get to the question. It's a two-parter. When you examine how fiber is officially classified by nutritional science standards compared to truly essential nutrients like vitamin C or essential amino acids, what fundamental difference strikes you as most significant for how we should think about fiber requirements? And you mentioned that fiber gets an AI based on observational endpoints like cardiovascular disease and stool bulk rather than true physiological necessity. When you look at these population studies that drove these recommendations, what's the critical flaw in applying these findings to someone who's metabolically healthy and in nutritional ketosis? Okay, start with the first part, the big one. Fiber isn't treated as an essential nutrient with a physiological requirement. It has only an adequate intake, an AI, set from observational endpoints, for example, the lowest CDV risk, stool bulk, etc., not an estimated average requirement recommended daily allowance, right? Anchored to a deficiency disease or a validated biomarker. In contrast, truly essential nutrients like vitamin C and indispensable amino acids have EAR RDAs because we know the intake at which deficiency occurs and we can measure the status, right? And as far as what an AI is, so here's the short version. The population fiber data doesn't transport to a keto carnivore metabolism. Most of the high fiber equals lower risk evidence comes from high-carb mixed diet cohorts using food frequency questionnaires, which are notoriously bad anyways. Fiber there behaves like a proxy for a better overall carb pattern. More whole foods, fewer refined carbs, which it may not be. Fire, right? Not a physiologic requirement. In sustained nutritional ketosis, where glycemic load, insulin, the triglyceride, the HDL, and your inflammation markers are already optimized, the incremental risk reduction expected from more fiber is unclear, likely very small, and maybe absolutely zero, right? In fact, more than likely, it's absolutely zero. Okay, so let's break this down real quick. Fiber versus essential nutrients. Why this matters, especially for if you're looking at keto and carnivore lens, through a keto carnivore lens. Fiber, because it has an AI, means it's not essential. It's not absorbed. There's no blood status. There's no deficiency syndrome. Data is completely insufficient to set any kind of a RDA or EAR. So an AI was issued, right? An adequate intake based on somebody's guess, quite honestly, right? More than likely. Okay, so it's useful in some contexts, but not a mandatory minimum. There's not even an AMDR for fiber because it contributes negligible energy. Treat it as a tool, not a requirement. Things that have an RDA, like vitamin C, for example. We can define scurvy. We can look at things like body pools, plasma thresholds, and set an EAR RDA accordingly, right? We know that people who don't get enough vitamin C based on their metabolism, right? Because people who eat carbohydrates need more vitamin C than people who eat carnivore or keto. But we know that, right? And we can set minimum standards for you to look at. And if you don't get them, we know you get sick, right? Same thing goes with amino acids. If you don't get the essential amino acids in your diet, your body has to break down proteins in your muscles and stuff in your body to get to those amino acids, and eventually you get very sick. If you don't get some of the essential vitamins, like B12, for example, you start getting neurological issues. So we know that those things are tied directly to disease frameworks. So there is a big difference between something that may or may not help you, and we really can't tell, versus things that we know that if you don't get, you get sick. All right, let's talk about practical takeaways though. On a well-formulated ketogenic or carnivore diet, there's no obligatory fiber target. Dose it or not, based on symptoms and goals rather than chasing universal minimum, right? And I do think that, and I work with people, that if you're having specific types of gut issues, mild gut issues, sometimes a specific type of a fiber can help with that. And I do suggest, okay, take the fiber for 60 days, and then we'll see what happens, right? That does make sense. It doesn't make sense to just universally just pound stuff into your body that it can't do anything with, okay? So this aligns with internal guidance that the physiological requirement for fiber can be 0 for many individuals, right? Especially when metabolic control and bowel comfort are achieved without it. Okay? So fiber is not a requirement, it's a tool. And if you're in ketosis, any benefits you get from fiber may be limited, if not non-existent. Okay? What breaks when applying population studies to the keto carnivore mindset or worldview or eating pattern, whatever you want to call it? And this is very important. It's a different dietary matrix, right? The landmark fiber meta-analysis in the Lancet pooled mostly higher carb eating patterns and even noted minimal effects for glycemic index load. The WHO press summary explicitly flagged that total carbohydrate intake wasn't considered. If more fiber mostly displaced refined carbs, that benefit is already captured by carbohydrate restriction. Extrapolating the same effect into ketosis overestimates the benefit, right? Once again, what they're saying is that, hey, if you're eating a lot of fiber, you're displacing refined carbs, right? You're eating broccoli instead of eating baked crackers or something, right? You're probably eating both, but hopefully the fiber's helping a little bit, right? But neither of it's necessarily good. When you're dealing with these types of population studies, right, there's lots of error in healthy user confounding, okay? Cohorts lean on FFQs, tools with substantial under and over reporting, right? These are frequency questionnaires. And correlation with true intake, right? So think about it. Somebody hands you a questionnaire. Sometimes it could be a monthly questionnaire. Sometimes it could be a weekly, right? Rarely is it a daily questionnaire. It says, what did you eat? And you may not know exactly what you ate, but you know what? Oh yeah, I eat lots of vegetables. Vegetables are good for you. Oh yeah, I eat a lot of that stuff. Oh yeah, people say don't eat sugar, so I didn't eat any sugar, even though I had a piece of cake every night. Right? I mean, this is the truth of how these things come together. So you got to be really careful about the numbers. Okay? So what happens is they tend to underestimate the carbs. They tend to underestimate the refined food that they're eating. They tend to overestimate their high fiber, right? So, bingo. What happens with that? Well, we get this idea that fiber is good for you. Comes from these questionnaires, okay? The metabolic baseline isn't comparable. If you're in ketosis and you're eating a ketogenic or carnivore lifestyle, right? The cardiometabolic risk factors that they're supposedly targeting with fiber are improving usually dramatically over what the fiber ever could do. Triglycerides go down, your HDL goes up, your HSCRP, which is your highly reactive C-reactive protein, which is your a big marker of inflammation, goes down. Your glucose and insulin becomes stable and goes down. So, I mean, eating ketogenic and carnivore gives you what you're looking for without thinking about having to do any fiber. And fiber doesn't help you, okay? So, 5-year data from a ketogenic continuous care model, right? And we've got a couple of them out there now, show durable improvements in HbA1c, weight, triglyceride control, HDL control, triglycerides going down, HDL going up, right? Inflammation being done away with neutral LDL issues, right? Independent of high fiber targets, Okay, and that's in just traditional. We've got several now, 5 year plus type studies looking into that. Okay, so the effect, if anything, of eating fiber, if you're in a ketogenic carnivore type diet, is modest, very context bound, and may be absolutely worthless. Right? Viscous fibers like psyllium powder do lower LDL a bit, but classic meta-analysis show a 4 to 7% approximate drop in LDL reductions. But is that even necessary? LDL has always proven to be very helpful. Your health goes up with higher LDL. They don't tell you that, but yeah, if you look at all of the studies, a higher your LDL, typically within a limit, right? Say within certain limits, is good for you. It improves your ability to deal with bacteria and viruses and stuff, right? It helps your autoimmune system. It is shown to lower your all-cause mortality levels, especially if you're slightly older, if you're over 50 and stuff. Higher LDL is actually good for you, right? So I wouldn't even worry about the LDL, quite honestly, right? In fact, the American Heart Association doesn't even worry about LDL anymore. They don't tell you that, but they don't if you look at their official sites, right? So these things are only important, eating lots of fiber, if you're on a low-fat diet, not if you're on a high-fat diet, right? And that's something, once again, that they don't tell you. Okay, so the bottom line, if you're on a keto or carnivore diet, the external validity of these observational fibers protective surveys and studies are absolutely worthless. Okay? Fiber does nothing if you're on a ketogenic or carnivore diet for the most part. Okay, you're getting the benefits of low glycemic load, lower insulin, favorable triglycerides to HDL levels. You get keto-motivated anti-inflammatory signaling, right? There is no potential requirement. There never actually was a requirement for fiber. There's no benefit, right? It really is almost no benefit whatsoever, if any. Once again, I do like specifically targeted interventions with certain types of fiber for very specific gut issues, because they do seem to work very well, right? But as a rule, you don't need to eat fiber, okay? I mean, that's just the bottom line if you're on a keto carnivore diet. Now, once again, I've said this before in other ones. If you're coming off a high-carb diet and you're eating a lot of vegetables and you're eating a lot of fiber, transition slowly to a keto carnivore diet, right? Give your body 2, 4, 6 weeks. 4 is on average. 6 is if you're having some problems, and 2 is the absolute minimum. Give yourself some time to transition away from that, because you gotta allow your gut microbiome to adjust, and it takes a few days, right? Every few days, your gut microbiome keeps changing and replacing, and so it will adapt to what you're eating. But give it a chance, okay? Don't switch from a high carb, lots of fiber diet, and then the next day go completely carnivore and never go back. I mean, give your body a chance, all right? That's all I can say about that. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the appropriate section. And remember, this is a community we're building here. I'm here to try to answer your questions. If there's something you want me to cover, put it in the comments. Let me see what you're looking for. I'll add it to the production schedule as fast as I can. Okay? But we're here to answer your questions. And as always, if you haven't done so, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with a friend. It helps the channel a great deal. Thank you for that. And you'll help a lot of other people. Have a great day.